Hello and welcome to
Conway's Kitchen is some finger licking. It's an easy way to cook.
What is up, y'all? Welcome to Conway's Kitchen. Today, I want to talk about spices. I got about 10 spices here. I want to go through how I mix and match and combine seasonings to sort of achieve flavor profiles inspired by certain cuisines. Very broad stroke stuff, though. Mexican food, Italian food. It's not an exhaustive list. It's pretty simple stuff I use for 99% of my meals. I want to go through and show you, how you can combine things and, start heading down the direction to, make that pasta better, make that curry more flavorful, just how to utilize these seasonings in different ways. Let's check it out. With Italian food, Mediterranean food, anything that I kind of want to make like herbaceous and kind of uplifting, my main go-to is thyme. I like thyme a lot. It's really hearty. And general rule of thumb with dry seasonings like this is you kind of want to add them towards the end. But thyme is pretty cool. You can cook it down a lot, so you can add it a lot earlier in your cooking, and it sort of just is a very deep flavor. So I use this a lot of times for like the base flavor for whatever sort of Italian, herbaceous, Mediterranean thing I'm going for. A lot of times I'm starting with thyme, and a lot of times I'm coupling that at the end with Italian seasoning. You guessed it, Italian seasoning, Italian food. Sometimes it's that simple. A lot of times these things are just blends of different spices. This one actually includes thyme, so it's a little double dipping there. But Italian food, Italian seasoning, good thing to have around just to make it kind of herbaceous. And similarly, garlic powder, general rule of thumb, fresh herbs, fresh garlic, fresh ginger, stuff like that. It's kind of probably tastes a bit better, a little bit more, a little bit bolder, more present in your food, but sometimes you don't have the garlic around, so it's good to have just garlic powder around and sort of fill that niche as well. So like thyme, garlic powder, Italian seasoning, that helps to make, most of my Italian, Mediterranean, herbaceous food. With anything that I'm trying to make kind of Mexican food, I usually start off seasonings with two things, chili powder and garlic powder. Garlic powder, good to just have around and use with most cuisines. Chili powder, a lot of times it's like a blend of different chilies and spices and stuff like that, but just a kind of good way to bring out a lot of like smokiness and just kind of get you down the path. So a lot of times I'll start off cooking with chili powder, and then later on I'll add cumin. And cumin is pretty typical for a lot of, anything that's sort of south of the United States borders is probably going to add a decent amount of cumin to it. So I usually just hit it first with the chili powder and the garlic powder together, let that cook down for a bit, and then kind of come in with the cumin at the end. And for me, generally speaking, kind of tastes like Mexican food. If you are making soup or beans, I would recommend having some bay leaves around. I don't really know how to use them outside of those things very well, but basically anytime I make a soup, anytime I cook down beans, I add bay leaves. It adds just a lot of like really sort of undertones of like a general like herbaceousness. It does pair well with beans, even though that kind of sounds weird of like, why would you want herby beans? Like you can still put those beans in like Mexican food and it's not going to taste super weird. It just sort of brings out flavors within the beans themselves. A little salt, a little bay leaf when you're cooking down your beans, boom, you got amazing beans afterwards. With soups as well, just you can cook them down for hours. They're not going to like disintegrate. You don't eat them or anything like that. You just throw them in, let them sit there, let them cook off, and then you just take them out at the end. So bay leaves, good to have around. Soup, beans. If I'm ever trying to cook Asian food in the sort of like Chinese, Japanese persuasion, like sort of the more northern Asian area, my go-tos, Chinese 5-spice. Again, if you want to cook food that tastes kind of like Chinese food, Chinese 5-spice goes hand in hand. I found that this was a little hard to find at certain stores, but I also found that like a little bit goes a super long way. So if you find some, it's good to just have around just to add a little bit to your food, and it kind of just helps cater everything more towards like those flavor profiles. Almost always I pair it with some ginger as well. Again, general rule of thumb, fresh ginger, probably going to be a little bit better, but sometimes hard to find, sometimes expensive, whatever. It's easy to have just powdered ginger around, so ginger is a good one for just sort of any like Asian-y food. Similarly, garlic powder. Garlic powder is used with a lot of different foods, in my household at least. I like the combination of the garlic and the ginger, so I like to pair it a lot with my Asian foods. And generally, another thing I like to add is turmeric. I don't think it's the most traditional for like Japanese and Chinese foods and Korean foods and just stuff of that nature, but there's a lot of good health benefits with turmeric, and I don't like take pills every day or anything like that, and so it's sort of just a way to add good health benefits to your food. It also doesn't have like a bunch of flavor, so it's pretty easy to just add to your food without really like shifting the flavor in any certain direction. So sort of moving south to more South Asian food. And again, very like generic home cooking style. I'm not claiming that this is like a very authentic process at all. It's really just like if you're cooking for yourself or a couple people and like you just want to kind of make food that tastes roughly like in these flavor profiles kind of thing. If you took all those things I was talking about for Chinese, Japanese food and you moved sort of south and talking about like Thai food or like Indian food or something like that, more like South Asian, the biggest difference is really just instead of using Chinese five spice, using curry powder. I use ginger a lot, I use turmeric a lot, I use garlic powder, basically with everything. But I found that if you sort of, the more South Asian you want to go with it, the more curry powder you're going to want to add. You can get certain things like masala blends, and there's a lot more ways, spice-wise, to like build upon this stuff. But just in terms of like trying to keep it like super minimal and simple and just like starting off, it's a good way to just go from there. So, curry powder, can add it pretty early on in the process. I use it a lot of times with like curries or like lentils. I tend to toast this down and add like coconut milk with it kind of thing. So a lot of times I'll start off and I'll start sauteing down, ginger, garlic, some curry powder, stuff like that. Let that toast down for like a minute or so. And then add in maybe like a sauce or just coconut milk or some sort of broth or something like that. And then the flavors really come together that way. So really biggest difference with the sort of like roughly North Asian versus South Asian for me is just like Chinese five spice or curry powder. Which am I feeling tonight? Hi. Lastly, it's not so much a spice, it's a yeast, but you can use it very much like a spice. Nutritional yeast. I kind of use it wherever I would add cheese to something. It has a very just sort of like cheesy, like a mild cheddar is kind of like the flavor it tastes like. It can be a little dry, but it combines really well with a lot of things. If you add it to like hummus or you add it to cheese or anything that's creamy itself, the nutritional yeast will just blend into that super easily. It's fun because it's full of vitamins, things that as a vegetarian myself, or if you're vegan out there, or whatever it is, B vitamins can be hard to come by if you're not eating a lot of animal products. Let's be honest. They're not in a lot of non-animal products, but nutritional yeast is one of the things that has a lot of B vitamins. So a good way to sort of get a big health benefit as well as a nice palate benefit. It's delicious. I use it basically wherever I use cheese. You can add it to popcorn, anything like that. And unlike a lot of like non-dairy cheeses, it's just nutritional yeast. Like a lot of non-dairy cheeses are full of like a lot of processed like oils and just hyper processed food that is trying to be something that it's not, and so they're really trying to just like fill it with whatever they can to make it taste. In the end of the day, it's just not really very healthy. A lot of the times, like you try and eat less cheese or less meat because it's like a healthier alternative, but if you buy this like Boca burger or you buy this fake whatever the fuck cheese, like it's probably not healthier. So if you're looking to like be healthier about it, nutritional yeast, good way to go. Kind of hard to find sometimes. I found a lot of times it comes in the like bulk bin section of grocery stores where you gotta like pull the thing and like fill the bag and like write that process. If you have Bob's Red Mill around, you might be able to find this bag. Who knows? But nutritional yeast, it's a good healthy thing to add wherever you want to add some cheese. All right, y'all. That's it. Spices. Don't cook your food all bland anymore. Add some spices to it. Just a couple things will really like bring out a lot of different flavors. And Again, this is a pretty like non-exhaustive list. There's so many spices out there and so many different ways to like really like cater your stuff very specifically. But I found just having these things around, they have a long shelf life. You can just keep them in your cabinet, pull them out whenever you need them, and just add them to your food. Brings your food to a whole new world, so just keep these spices around, keep them in mind. Good healthy ways to avoid other sauces that might have a bunch of sugars or cheeses that might be processed in all sorts of weird ways. Whatever it is, just having some spices around, it's a good idea for your kitchen.